Welcome back to the Leadership Momentum Sprint. Today we're building one more piece of your leadership foundation. Every day is another step toward clarity, confidence, and unstoppable momentum. Let's jump in.
Welcome to day 4 of our Leadership Momentum Sprint. And today we take on something that impacts every single manager, and that is relationships. Not the easy ones, but the strategic ones. Every leader has one relationship that creates friction or slows momentum. Maybe it's a leader who is not clear on their expectations, a peer who communicates last minute, or one of your team members who needs more direction than the others. The truth is, most leadership problems are actually relationship problems. So today, I'll guide you through a simple but powerful process of identifying that one relationship just to figure out who is that person that you have that strenuous relationship with. What's the pattern? Is it happening every single week? And what action can you take in the next 48 hours to either enhance the relationship or find a way to get aligned? When you strengthen that one relationship, everything tends to work a little bit better. Everything around you gets a little bit easier. And this is how great leaders get to build momentum, one conversation at a time. So here we are on day 4. So let's jump right to it. Over the years, I've worked with different companies, and that was before I got into business 11 years ago. And I worked for 4 major companies. Some of my friends thought I was kind of job hopping. I believe the company that I worked with the longest was 4.5 years. The others were like a year and a half, and then I would go to a different company. One of the things I struggled with in some of the companies was having a clear alignment with my bosses. Some of my bosses were potentially not trained to be leaders. They were kind of like muscle managers. They were not very good with relationships. They were very reactive. Just like any company out there, you don't always have great days. Sometimes you have a good day in terms of performance. Sometimes you have a bad day. And specifically for one particular company where the results were measured hour by hour, it was a manufacturing company. And then I worked for another company where every single week we'd get together on Monday to talk about our goals. And then on Friday, we'll send out reports, basically status reports. And once a month, we get together, the whole district, to talk about our performance. And I saw some of my boss being very reactive and getting too emotional and going after the status, so to say, where they want their district to be number one, and they would push and push the managers sometimes unreasonably without really clear direction. And that's one of the experiences I had. And I remember kind of saying to myself that if I ever get a chance to have a team of my own and a company of my own, I'll never treat my people that way. And I hope my team doesn't feel like I push them to the wall unreasonably. So it's possible to have a strenuous relationship either with your boss or with your colleagues or with someone who is underneath you. When it comes to picking one relationship that you want to enhance or find a way to make it better, 2 things you need to do is to either remove miscommunication or find a way to enhance the communication between you and that particular person. Most of the challenges we face in leadership are relationship oriented, and specifically, they fall under miscommunication. And the second thing I recommend you do is to restore alignment, because most likely at some point you are aligned with that person, and then somehow something happened and you find that you're having some issues with that particular individual. So, why does this matter? For you to find a way to restore that relationship. Most leadership problems, like I said, are relationship breakdowns where you're not seeing eye to eye, or you don't see the same things the same way. When you talk about either timelines and deadlines, some people might feel, hey, this needs to take a week. In your books, you feel it needs to take 2 days, or some people feel you're moving too fast, others they feel like you're moving too slow. And there are different things that contribute towards that. One of them is experience level. Number 2 is outlook on things. There's also some contribution that comes from people's personality. If you're familiar with a system like the DISC system, where the Ds are high dominant, they move fast, they are very impatient, they just focus on the results. And then we have the S's that they want to have a little bit of fun and they lean more towards relationships before they talk about work. And then we have the S's who are usually steady, and to an extent considered to be a little bit slow in terms of moving because they are very relationship oriented. They believe that everyone needs to get along before we can move forward with a project. The D's on the flip side, they don't, to an extent, they are like, hey, we don't have to get along so long as we are getting the results. That's their outlook on things. And then we have the C's who are highly analytical. They focus on the numbers. They want to know all the details before they make the first step. So your personality can contribute towards the kind of relationship you're going to have with someone. If you have someone with a D personality and someone else with an S personality, at some point they'll get aligned, but initially they are likely to have a rocky relationship. One unclear relationship can stall projects and drain momentum. It can bring friction. And where there's friction, the progress is going to be slowed down. This lesson today is all about identifying that one relationship that you need to get aligned with or that you need to enhance. Strengthening that one strategic relationship can also create an immediate impact. And in this case, it's going to be a positive impact. So if there's one or two people that you are either not getting along or you're not getting clear communication, especially from above, or you are not aligned when it comes to the people you're collaborating with, or some of your team members that you get together in a meeting, agree on something, and after the meeting they go complain to each other, or sometimes they go to other departments and complain to your colleagues, which it's possible. So if you learn that something like that is happening, it's your responsibility as a leader to step in and find a way to help fix the problem. At the end of the day, you are responsible for your leadership, you are responsible for your team. So identifying the relationship, you need to ask yourself several questions. Number one, who creates the friction? Most of the times we get to be a little bit biased and we point fingers at the other person and say it's their fault or they are responsible for it. I'm doing the best that I can. In your books, they might be responsible for the friction, but if you talk to them, they might feel you are responsible for the friction. And in that case, it means there is some kind of misalignment or miscommunication. Who is causing the friction and who is causing the repeated miscommunication? Again, get together and get to discuss. There's a process of doing this. You don't have to be all dramatic about it or be disrespectful or feel like you are entitled. It doesn't matter. Even if the other person is wrong, you need to find a way to sit down, have a good discussion, get aligned, because it's going to be good for both of you to move a little bit faster. The second thing is to ask the person that I'm having friction with, is it my boss, someone that you're trying to influence up? Is it one of my peers, someone that you're trying to influence right across? Or is it one of my team members, in this case, the people that you are influencing downward? And then the last question is, what feels unclear between the two of you? What is it? You got to be very specific. So if it's an executive who is expecting some results from their team members and they move fast, they communicate fast, they send an email and they expect people to digest the message, understand it, and act on it as fast as possible. And potentially there's someone else on the other side who is receiving the message and they go like, hey, this message doesn't have the full information I need. So I'm going to wait for them to either send the information or they send an email back and say, hey, can you send me clear information? And that's likely to bring some kind of a conflict. So what is it that feels unclear between the two of you? Be very specific. Don't say, hey, I feel like we are not on the same page. That sounds fancy and we like to use those kind of terms, but what does it mean to be on the same page? What does it really mean? So, but if you say, hey, in the last 1 month, or the emails I've received from you, they're not having enough information for me to act on. So can you give me more information? If possible, give them a checklist and say, for this particular project, I need A, B, C. I shared the other day that I don't struggle with communication, but I do. And what I mean is I can articulate what I want very well. But sometimes I have conversations with myself in my head and I feel like I communicated everything, or I've been thinking about something and acting on it for weeks. And when I get together with my team for an hour and a half, I just spill out all the information I have in my head or maybe on a piece of paper. I might think, or at least most of the times, I feel like they got it and they should act on it. So whenever they come back with the questions, I used to get irritated and go like, they should get it. And then I realized, no, they need more detail. So right now, what I do is, if you're rolling out a new project or a new program that we are creating or a new initiative or even changing something, I would write it down, I'll look at it, and then I'll sit on it for about a day or two, then go back to it and see, does it still make sense to me? And then I'll refine it and I will send it to one of my managers. They'll look at it, and then after that, we put it out to everyone else. So that's the process. It's a little bit slow, but it makes it easy when we do that. It's an aspect of slowing down so you can move a little bit faster. Just this morning, we have a new kind of content creation plan, a framework, so to say, that I created. And it was last week, and I was like, okay, we do well when it comes to our content, but not very well. We are not maximizing on our potential, and we are not very consistent, whether it's with our videos or our emails or our blogs. And I said, okay, we need to be very consistent, and especially moving to the new year. So I created a draft for that framework for our content, and I let it sit. So that was what that was a Monday, and I looked at it on a Thursday, and it still wasn't very clear to me, really. So I spent 2 hours refining it and putting it all together. And then I sent a message to one of my leaders, and I said, hey, I have this created. Can you look at it? And then after that, we are going to put it out to everyone else. So hoping that in the next week or two, we'll have it refined and we can roll it out so we can move a little bit faster. So even for the leaders who like to move fast, I recommend you develop a habit of slowing down for others, not because they are slow, but because they need clarity so they can move as fast as possible. Before we get to the homework for today, let me share with you the worksheet that we have for you. Section 1 is identifying the relationship. We talked about that. Section number 2, which sphere of influence do they belong? In day 1 of this leadership momentum sprint, we talked about the sphere of influence where you have people that you're influencing up, right, across, and down. If you go back to day 1 and day 2, you'll be able to see it. Section 2, what specifically feels unclear or misaligned? Make sure you write it down clearly. Section number 3 is what's the root cause? Now, if you sit down by yourself, most likely you'll come up with some ideas or at least some information on what you think is the root cause. My recommendation is you go to the other person, express how you're feeling and what you're observing and what's happening, and then ask them the same questions. What do you think is the cause of friction? What do you think is the cause of misalignment? So there are several possibilities here. You can check all that apply. Maybe it's all of them or just a few of those, and you can add a few more. Number 1, unclear expectations. It could be assumptions or unspoken frustrations. That's a big one. A lot of people out there usually don't express how they feel, and I totally get it. And I used to be that person who would sit on something for months and months, and then at some point I just start resenting the person. I did a training earlier this year for 7 emerging leaders for a company here in Kansas City. And one of the things that came up quite often from most of them was that they have a team member who's not doing their job and they don't know how to address it. And at some point, one of the managers said they have someone in the company who drives everyone crazy, and everybody knows what's happening, including the CEO. And I was like, how come that person still works there? And they said, this person has been sent to the HR, their manager has talked to them, but they're still doing their thing. The point is, you should not sit on your frustrations. You need to express them specifically to the person that's causing that frustration to you. The next possible cause for the frustration and misalignment is lack of follow through. The next one is conflicting priorities. I mentioned that some people feel like the deadline needs to be in a week, others it needs to be in a day, others, we need to wait for a year or something like that. And then the last one is personality or style differences. I talked about the different personalities that people have. I talked about DISC, and there are different systems out there that you can use. There's DISC, there's Myers-Briggs, there's a culture index. Those are the few I know. And there's a strengths finder, and I've taken that as well. So it doesn't matter. All those systems get to highlight how people react when they're upset, how they react when they are happy. Basically, it talks about their natural personality and their adapted personality so that at least you know how to deal with them. Now, that's not to say that if someone is kind of highly charged and they get all upset when you say something, it doesn't mean that you need to walk on eggshells. It just means you need to have a discussion and express to them, hey, this is what I see, and this is how you usually react whenever I say something. How do you want us to handle it? If we have a problem, how do you want us to address that? It just helps to keep the team moving and also get the results that you're intending to get. And then section number 4 is all about clarity action. within the next 48 hours. What is it you're going to do? What one action will you take to strengthen this particular relationship? So I mentioned that you are likely to have several relationships that you need to mend or you need to enhance. You don't have to address all of them at once. You can simply identify one, especially the one that has the biggest impact. If it's potentially a negative impact, you need to address that. And then after that, you go to the next one and the next one. And let me just mention this: when it comes to relationships with either your boss or your coworkers, your colleagues, and your employees, it can get a little bit dicey because you want to look like you care. And actually, you should care for your team. You don't want to come out as if you're just being mean to them. But at the same time, you have a responsibility, you have a role to play. And I believe your biggest role is to make sure that you create an environment where everyone feels like they belong, where everyone feels like they are making a contribution, where everyone feels like they are respected and they matter. That's your responsibility. And you don't necessarily have to be the nicest person in the room, although that helps. If you can be professional, respectful, and be nice at the same time, that's okay. But I believe what your team members are looking for is a leader who is resourceful, a leader who is going to stand up for them, a leader who is going to guide them, a leader who is going to mentor them, a leader who is going to inspire them, to show them what's possible, but also empower them with tools and resources so they can continue growing. And that's it for this lesson. As always, thank you for being a part of this training. Keep on building your momentum, and I'll see you in the next lesson.